The average American spends $18,000 a year on things they don't need. Not because they're reckless, not because they're bad with money, because three invisible systems, built into your brain by evolution and refined by billion-dollar companies, were specifically engineered to make sure of it. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what those systems are, how to spot them in real time, and one question that short-circuits all three instantly. And the last one? Nobody talks about it, but it might be the most useful thing you hear all year. So settle in. Here's how it actually works. Let's start with something that sounds wrong until it doesn't. You don't shop because you like buying things. You shop because your brain loves wanting them. There's a difference, and it's enormous. Neuroscientist Dr. Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan spent years mapping what happens in your brain when you crave something versus when you enjoy it. What he found split the whole thing in two. Wanting is driven by dopamine, the craving, the pull, the electric feeling of pursuit. Liking is a completely separate system, driven by opioids, and it's what you feel when you actually have the thing. Here's the twist. The wanting system is far louder than the liking system, and the dopamine spike peaks during the search, not the purchase, not the unboxing, the search. That's why scrolling Amazon at midnight feels good even when you buy nothing. That's why window shopping has real neurological backing. And that's why a 6-year-old in Texas named Ryan Kaji built a $100 million company just by opening toy packages on YouTube. 250 million people watch unboxing videos every month, not because they want to see the toy, but because watching someone else anticipate the toy delivers a borrowed hit of that exact feeling. The wanting was always the product. Costco figured this out decades ago. Their stores are deliberately chaotic. Luxury items next to bulk paper towels, random finds rotated constantly, because founder Jim Sinegal knew unpredictability keeps dopamine spiking on every visit. IKEA built an entire maze, 90 minutes, one winding path, no shortcuts. The average shopper walks in planning to buy 2 things and leaves with 8. The store didn't persuade them, it just kept them in the wanting state long enough. So here's the easy win. Next time you feel the urge to browse or tap Add to Cart, just name it. Say to yourself, that's my wanting system, not my liking system. That's it. Neuroscientist Dr. Matthew Lieberman at UCLA found that simply labeling an emotional state reduces its neural intensity. You don't have to resist, just name it. The loop loses power the moment you see it. Alright, so that's the first layer. But the wanting machine doesn't work alone, it gets help. Here's where it gets interesting. Even if you understand the dopamine loop, there's a second system running underneath it. Retailers and platforms have spent billions engineering specific triggers to hijack your brain before the rational part can respond. 3 of them matter most. First, scarcity. Dr. Robert Cialdini documented this in Influence back in 1984. People assign more value to things they believe are rare, regardless of whether they need them. Amazon's "only 3 left in stock" warning increases conversion rates by up to 20% on those pages. And here's the part that stings. A 2012 study in the Journal of Consumer Research found that simply adding "limit 6 per customer" to a grocery item increased average sales by 112%. The scarcity was invented. The urgency was real. Second, anchoring. In the early 1990s, Williams-Sonoma introduced a $429 bread maker alongside their $279 model. Sales of the cheaper one nearly doubled, not because the product changed, but because now it looked like a bargain. They never intended to sell the expensive one. It was a number, and it rewired everything you looked at after it. Nordstrom does the same thing with the $2,000 handbag near the entrance. Not for sale, just there to recalibrate your brain. Third, the pain of paying. MIT researchers Drazen Prelek and Duncan Simester found that people paid up to 300% more for the same item when using a credit card versus cash. Cash feels like loss, cards feel like nothing. Apple Pay and PayPal have taken it further, removing even the card number, reducing the psychological cost of payment to nearly 0. Apple Pay transactions average 30% higher spend than cash equivalents, The checkout button getting smaller isn't a design choice. It's a business decision. Watch for those three: scarcity, anchoring, friction removal. The moment you spot one, you've stepped outside the mechanism. You can still buy, but now you're choosing, not reacting. If this is landing for you, hit subscribe. I drop videos like this every week, and the best part is still coming. Okay, remember how I said the last one was the one nobody talks about? Here it is. You've heard the dopamine loop, you've heard the triggers, but there's a deeper reason you buy things you don't need, and it has nothing to do with weakness or habit. It has to do with identity. You're not buying products, you're buying a version of yourself. Dr. Russell Belk at York University published a landmark paper in 1988 called Possessions and the Extended Self. His argument: people don't just own objects, they become them, at least in their minds. The yoga mat you never use isn't a failed purchase, it's a purchase of the person who does yoga. The guitar in the corner is a purchase of the person who plays guitar. The cookbooks collecting dust are a purchase of the person who cooks beautiful meals on Sunday afternoons. The object was never the point, the identity was. And here's where it gets stranger. Psychologist Dr. Hal Hershfield at UCLA ran brain scans while people thought about their future selves. The neural activation looked more like thinking about a stranger than thinking about themselves. Your future self, the one who was going to use the bread maker, read the books, go to the gym, your brain treats that person like someone else entirely. You're not buying things for yourself, you're buying gifts for a stranger you've never met. A 2020 survey found the average American home contains $3,100 worth of unused items. The number one category? Fitness equipment. Second, books and educational materials. Third, kitchen gadgets. Almost perfectly mapping onto every identity we buy but never inhabit. British author Caitlin Moran put it perfectly. I bought a £400 coat I couldn't afford because in the changing room, wearing it, I became the person I wanted to be. The moment I got home, it was just a coat. That one sentence is the entire mechanism. Dr. Baba Shiv at Stanford found that when people asked one question before buying, am I buying this for who I am or who I imagine I'll become? Impulse purchases dropped by up to 40%. One question. It moves your brain out of the dopamine loop and into the prefrontal cortex, the part that actually decides instead of just reacts. Here's how to use it. Set a personal threshold, maybe $30, maybe $50. Before anything above that, ask yourself, am I buying the product or buying the person who owns it? If it's the person, wait 48 hours. Not to deprive yourself, because the imagined self you're buying for will either still feel real in 2 days, in which case buy it, or will have faded completely, in which case you just saved money on a gift for a stranger you were never going to become. That shift alone could save you more than everything else in this video combined. So there it is, the wanting machine, the trigger system, and the identity trap. 3 invisible forces that explain almost everything you've ever bought and immediately forgotten about. Name the loop, spot the triggers, ask the one question. You were never bad with money, you just didn't know the game was being played. Now you do. If this helped, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.